Today we'll look at IDERA SQL Diagnostic Manager, and this is a tool that is focused on monitoring of Microsoft SQL Server database engines, but it really hasn't been molded so much around analysis services or integration services or reporting services, which kind of go alongside the database engine. So if you're wanting to focus on some of those key counters that tie into those aspects of BI services, then you'll need some assistance with where to go to add those particular counters and which counters you might want to add. So this is Diagnostic Manager. We're going to go over to the administration section. And from here we have the ability to really customize this tool and mold it around what our own monitoring needs are. And that can be through adding SQL queries, other SQL Server counters, anything that you want to add above and beyond what has already been added to the tool, Hyper-V or VMware metrics, Azure Server system counters as well, but also perfmon and WMI counters. And so what we're going to look at today specifically is some of those metrics that are available through perfmon type counters. And so I'm selecting the Windows system counter, and I select Next. Then we hit the drop down for the instance. Now I'm selecting one instance here, but in the future we're able to link these metrics to other instances that may have these BI services hosted on the same server. So we'll go ahead and select this instance for now. And as we interrogate the performance objects, we can go down the list here. And as you can see, we have the Microsoft Analysis Services counters. And some of those that we might want to focus on may be connections, and you can hit the drop down to look at current connections or user sessions or failures or requests in general per second. We could also hit the drop down here for the different counter types and go down perhaps to the memory counters. And you have a whole variety of different memory counters that are available. So you'll be able to look at overall the memory limit high or low, Vertipack memory, I think that's down here at the very bottom, and see how that's, be able to monitor that and track that over the history of the monitoring tool. You might go into the overall threads, so let's go, because this is going to show us how the CPU is being used. So right here is where we go, and we have all the different counters that come in to play with threads. And you can see going down the list here, we have the processing pool busy IO job threads, the completion rate, the queue length to show if anything's standing in line, so to speak. So there's a number of little counters like that that you might want to focus on to just kind of understand from an alerting standpoint if there's any pressure that is happening. As you go through and add the counters, I've added one for just connections at this point. You walk through the wizard, and it's very simple to set it up here. Once you set up the counter that you want to add in, then we can go ahead and select, in this case, do we want to use collected value or the per second value since the last collection. You can even scale values up or down depending on what you're seeing as a value when you go to look at that counter. Sometimes you have this long decimal value on certain metrics and you want to scale it up to just a regular number that you can assign a threshold to, but you have the ability to scale it up or down from that standpoint. Then next, we give it a friendly name for that counter. We also provide whether higher values are worse than lower values or lower values are worse than higher values, and then define the thresholds in this window as well. And then you can select to enable the counter alert by default, so it's notifying you whenever a threshold condition is popping up. And then we select finish, and then we can link that SQL instance to different instances. It could be one instance, it could be 5, 10, it could be 50, but it's going to reach out to those instances and query that particular performance counter that you added in. And then if you want to see the metric, you just go over here to the particular instance and select the details tab, and you can actually go to the top here and filter on custom counters so you're not seeing all of these different metrics that we're pulling in, and then select from the custom counter list like SSAS connections. As you can see, I'm not having a lot of activity here, but you can pull in any of those metrics, and you might even label them appropriately with the SSAS or whatever the BI service is. If it's an integration services, then you'd have SSIS, for example, or reporting services, SSRS, so that you're able to easily select them and pop them into these charts on a necessary basis. To go hand in hand with this, though, the monitoring tool itself is just from the out-of-box features of the product. It is able to still give you visibility into what's going on with the overall CPU on the SQL Server, what's going on with memory activity as well. You can even go back historically if you need to and see if there's anything flushing from memory or what the memory allocation looks like, or look at SQL agent job failures. There's actually, if we go over here to services, and there we go. So now we're able to see all the jobs that have executed, what their last run outcome time was, or outcome status and runtime was, and you're able to see the history of the jobs, which can be exported as well. So this product will have complete visibility into the operating system and SQL Server side of things right away out of the box. But then you can add to this product with some of those perfmon counters that I showed you through the custom counter wizard under the administration section, and then link that over to the instance as well to complement what you're seeing within the tool with some of those additional counters. And so again, that would be like the connections type monitoring, the connections object, the threads, the cleaner memory, Vertipack memory, and then also tying that into CPU memory and disk I/O on the operating system, and also looking at how resources are being allocated and utilized by SQL Server itself when we go over here to the resources tab. And so with that, that concludes the video. If you don't have SQL Diagnostic Manager, I encourage you to go out to the IDERA website, www.idera.com. Go to the Diagnostic Manager for Microsoft SQL Server page, and from there you're able to start a trial. The trial software comes with a 14-day license key, so you can hit the ground running with using the tool right away. You don't have to wait for us to email you anything like a license key. And if you need a more formal discussion around the product, you can feel free to reach out to us, and we will work with you and actually do a demonstration of the product if you want to as well. Thank you for watching the video.